I want to have work fit around my kids, not have my kids fit around my work. I had children and built a family because I wanted to spend time with them. So it's not just going from W-2 work into consulting and freelance work. It's also about like shifting my identity into how I want to prioritize my life. And that has also been super transformational for me.
This one's for the parents building big things in tiny pockets of time. Take a deep breath. You've landed somewhere real. Hey, I'm Gabs Hayes, mom of 3, business mentor, and your go-to voice note battle buddy for anyone who's ever whispered, I love this life, but holy shit, it's a lot. Let's do it this week. She didn't know she was going to become one of my favorite people when she decided to join working with me in January. But now, anytime I show up for our weekly calls and you're not there, I'm like, where's Katie?
And it's only happened once. So
I know, and that's heartbreaking already. So anyway, I am really excited to introduce you all to Katy Lucey today. She has been a wonderful friend and client, and I'm just excited for y'all to get to learn from her and all of her marketing genius.
oh my God, that was like some of the kindest words that have ever been spoken to me. So thank you. I'm blessed to have you in my life. So let's just get that gushing out of the way. Anyway, as Gab said, my name is Katy Lucey. I went out on my own and started my own marketing company November of 2024. So it's just been a little bit like almost 6 months now, which is kind of crazy to say because it feels like it's been forever. Before that, I worked as a director at a couple of performance marketing agencies, really focused on digital and paid media, helping brands like Coach, Keurig, the NFL, Liquid IV, Elf, just really grow their business and acquire new customers, increase sales. And I hit a point last summer where I joked that it was a midlife crisis, but it was a midlife crisis. And I decided that I couldn't be working these hours anymore. I wanted to be making more of an impact and more of a difference with my knowledge and expertise. So I've branded myself as like a marketing therapist, trying to really sit with, business owners, lean teams who don't necessarily have the same expertise and really trying to help them figure out how to progress those goals.
I love this marketing therapist angle. Selfishly, every time I've gone to invest in marketing outside of what I can do in the business, I always feel overwhelmed. Like I always feel, do I need ads? Do I need SEO? Do I need emails? Do I need a brand? And everyone does little pieces of the pie is what it feels like. And so then I never quite know like who I actually need. So I love that, that's really the angle that you're taking. And I know in our time working together, you've really leaned into of like doing the workshops and the training and not just
Mhm.
you will go in and do the thing, but also leaving these teams with more knowledge, more understanding of what they're doing and why, so that you do it long term. And I think that's sometimes a huge thing that we miss when we have service providers, right? Because it's like, oh, you're the expert, just come in and do the thing. And sometimes that's what we need, like just get off my plate and
Yeah.
do the thing. But also, you need some understanding of why and how do you keep using what they've learned since they've worked with you. And so I love that that's what you've leaned into.
Yeah, and I made a LinkedIn post about this like last week and that like I've literally in the last 6 months thought about doing everything. Like I have and still am doing strategy and execution for people because like that's like what I did for and oversaw for like 10 years. And so that is my wheelhouse and that is my sweet spot. But when I like started to really think about like what was authentic to me and the things that I like really wish that I would have gotten to do more of when I was at these big agencies, so that's leaving people better and leaving teams better and helping them improve, like, teach a man how to fish or whatever. And like, so that's like sort of like where I am because it's like it doesn't take a lot of like effort and time to make that impact, but like I don't think people spend any time. And so it's like that's why I want to like sit down, spend the time with people, figure out what their problems actually are and figure out a plan that works for them. Because it's like I had clients spending $1 million a month on like Facebook. That's not going to work necessarily for a small brand. But if they have $500 to spend, like I might not tell them to put that into Facebook. I might be like, your customer's not on Facebook and stuff like that. So it's like really, I want it to be, I joke that it's like therapy, but it kind of is. It's like, what's on your mind? How can we figure it out together? Like, let's problem solve. And that's like what really invigorates me and like what I really want to be leaning into.
Yeah. And I think there's so much power in this too, because, and I know you're working with smaller agencies and, founders, entrepreneurs at this stage. And so, I put myself in their shoes. By the time I decide I need to hire someone, it's probably because I'm maxed out, I'm tapped out, I just can't do it anymore, right? And so
Mhm.
you start calling around or start, tapping into your network and you're like, I just need this thing done, right? I just want Facebook ads done. I just need leads coming in the door
Yep.
and so it's so nice to have someone to bounce these ideas off of, to take a step back and say, wait, I understand we need to move quick. I understand we need to get this done, but also let's do it with intentionality. And is that the right direction to go? I think
Mhm.
it's much like going to therapy, right? You know your life is struggling or you feel overwhelmed with your own life,
Yep.
but you go there to have someone else kind of take you out of your day-to-day, take you out of what you think you know and move you into learning new things. And whether that's,
Yes.
new skills, new coping mechanisms, breaking through things that you've been carrying around for a long time. And so I think that's a
Mhm.
lot of what I appreciate about the work that you're doing and just the confidence that you carry when you talk about it. And I know you don't necessarily always feel that. That's something we work on a
Yep.
lot. But the way that you know the impact you can make, and you're just figuring out what are the lanes that you get to make it in, and how do you find the people who need that
Mhm.
help?
Yeah, and honestly, it's like, that's the scary part because it's like, when I get the opportunity to actually, like, sit down and talk about this, like, I am confident and I know I can do it and I know I can make an impact, but it just and I keep using the word impact, and I know that's, like, my company name, and I'm not doing that on purpose, it just is a happy coincidence. When I get in the room with somebody, I'm confident and I can have that conversation. It's like getting to that step, which is where I sort of like am figuring out, okay, well, how do I get in the room with people? And so that's definitely, I think, where the like imposter syndrome or whatever is coming in because I'm just like, I know these people exist and I know there's teams that I could help. Like, where do I find them? And that's what like feels a little weird to me sometimes. But I know I can do it, like fundamentally finding people to do the work with.
Yeah. So you're at 6 months in. Looking back, is that part of what you would tell yourself when you decided to do this? Or what would you tell Katie when she decided she wasn't going back to another agency, but she was going to build one herself?
I know people who come on here probably say this a lot, but, like, I never had any intention of starting my own business. I love stability. I love somebody else telling me what to do and, like, giving me that security, and then I there just reached a point where that's, like, that didn't serve me anymore. I would have told myself to do it sooner, and I switched jobs, like, I moved companies, like, 5 months after my son was born, my 2nd kid, and I went from one agency to another, and, like, I probably should have done that then, but I was, like, postpartum, wasn't really, like, thinking about that, and, like, I did learn a lot from the agency that I just left in October, but I think the thing that I would tell myself, and this is something that I'm terrible at taking my own advice, so I probably wouldn't have listened, is to slow down, is to actually, like, think about what I want to be doing and how I actually want to help people. Because I know we've talked about this before, but, like, I think I registered an LLC and, like, bought a domain, like, less than a month after quitting my job. That was, like, the first thing that I felt like I had to do, and we started working together in January, so it wasn't that much difference in time, but I think that I would have just told myself to, like, sit with the fear a little bit more because I think that it is so scary and that you do wanna take action to, like, make that fear go away, going back to, like, the therapy talk, and so I think that, like, I did a lot of things to kind of quell that discomfort, but I think that if I wanted to I would say do it sooner and do it slower are probably the things that I would have, like, told myself had I like, if this was, like, a year ago right now. And, like, transparently, like, the last role that I had really did a number on my mental health and really impacted my confidence, and I basically felt like I was, like, terrible at my job, and I had no value, and I didn't bring value, and so, like, a big part of the last 6 months has actually been building and rebuilding that confidence, and so it's probably a good thing that I, like, just kinda dove in and didn't, like, overthink it. The speed at which I've been trying to grow is a little bit of a slower pace. Makes it more intentional, and I feel like I needed a little bit more intentionality behind it.
Yeah, I guess I haven't. I mean, I have reflected on this, not totally, but I would probably give some very similar advice. Like, I feel like, once you sign that first client and then the third and then the fifth, and it's all hard. Like, no one here is going to tell you it's not hard because I think that's a lie, and I'll stop them right in their tracks if they try to. But
Mhm.
I think all of us do get to a point where we do look back and it's like, we could have been doing this 2 years ago. We could have been doing this 3 years ago. But I also fully trust that, everything happens as it's supposed to, and it happens in the right time.
Like,
Um, but the slow piece, like that's something massive. I mean, the first 4 years, I was trying to run as fast as I possibly could in every single direction. And it's really powerful now because, like, for 2025, I just decided I wasn't. I was not going to play that game, and I
yeah.
didn't care what the cost was. And I tell people all the time now, the calm and peace inside of my body is worth more than $5 million. And so, if I could have done that from the very beginning, I think my business would look very
Yeah.
different, because while we find success doing it this speedy, this kind of haphazard way, it's always going to work in certain ways. But is it a
Mhm.
sustainable thing? Is it the way you actually want to experience what it means to be a CEO and run your business? And for many of us, the answer is
Mhm.
actually no. And so definitely, I just want to commend you, because I wish I would have taken that sooner too. So I love that that's the advice that you have also.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I'm also very transparent about is that, like, I don't wanna grow this to where it's like a company where I employ people. Like, part of another big reason why I made this switch is because I have 2 young children. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I realized that I was trying to be that mom when I had the time and the space to be the mom, and I realized that, wait, I actually wanna be the mom first, and so, like, I want to only be doing this, I say part-time because I think that that's, like, the best way to, like, describe it, but, like, my goal in building this business is to build a, sustainable business that, like, a sustainable revenue stream because, like, yes, like, life is expensive, especially when you have 2 children, of fulfilling work that allows me to make an impact on the people who I'm, like, working with and to really, like, help them, but also to be in my children's life, to be that glue in my family to make things run smoother. Because I think for a very long time, I had this idea in my head of what a working mom should look like. And it was working 9 to 5, working that 40, 45 hour work week and, being intentional with the kids at bedtime and all that sort of stuff. But then I realized I'm like, no, like I want to have work fit around my kids, not have my kids fit around my work. Like that's not who I am. I had children and built a family because I wanted to spend time with them. And so it's like also been like that kind of transformation for me too. It's like not just going from like, corporate W-2 work into sort of like consulting and like freelance work. It's like also about like shifting my identity into like how I want to prioritize my life. And I think that that has also been super transformational for me.
Yeah, and just to realize that we can do it, right? I mean, I've even been playing around lately telling people I'm a stay-at-home mom first and I run a business second. And for me inside, like that's been such a, I don't know, my mind still struggles to wrap around that a little bit, but it
Yeah.
is my reality. My 5-year-old is home with me every single day. And so I am a stay-at-home mom. I have a kid at home with me all the time. And it has been helpful because some of the things too, I realized, like, even when you were saying like we wanted to be intentional with bedtime, but the reality was we were so exhausted, you couldn't be. It was like, please just get in bed because I just need to sit and have 5 minutes of peace, right? And so it's like you didn't
Yeah.
even when you had the time, you didn't have that presence and that intentionality. And I realized even the same thing with my business. I would get so frustrated with the kids because they needed me during the day or they wanted me to come to their school. And I'm like, but I'm running a business. And it's like, again, check yourself. Like, that's not why I did this. If I wanted that, I could just go get a full
Yeah.
time job again and go work someone else's hours and probably make a heck of a lot more money than I am right now because I'm doing it slow. But there's nothing wrong with that if when you look at your life, what you really want your life to look like, and is your business supporting that instead of what you hear everyone else tell you it could or
Mhm.
should be.
Yeah, and, I spent 3 hours at my daughter's school yesterday helping with, like, kindergarten roundup because I'm on the PTO, but, like, since joining the PTO and getting very involved in her school, I realized that, like, not only am I building out a community professionally, but this is also giving me the space to build out a community, like, in real life, and, like, these people live down the street from me, and, like, now we're, like, hanging out, and it's this time that I have gifted myself, honestly, in terms of, like, figuring out how to, like, work for myself is also just gonna, like, have like exponential returns for like my life in the future. And I think that like I don't value that enough in that sense, because something that I know we've also talked about is like decoupling my worth from money, the money that I'm bringing in, because like that's how I've been for the last like 20 years of my life is like I have a paycheck, I am saving this money, I can contribute financially, like all that sort of stuff. And I realize that there are things that are like invaluable that I am also doing right now that like don't necessarily have like a number of financial number associated with them, but it's like it is also allowing me to build like a life that I want as opposed to just a business that I want to be doing.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cannot put a dollar amount on that. And I think we can talk about it all day long. And unfortunately, I think for the reality is you have to experience it to truly understand the value and the impact on
Mhm.
your life. But I have so many moms and dads on this podcast that we talk about this regularly. So I'm like, eventually we'll say it enough times that people are going to pick up on it.
Society tells parents, both moms and dads, that like, you know, you have to work to be important and you have to work to make an impact. And like, it's like I know even my husband, he struggles with like balancing, parenthood. And I've actually seen a transformation in him as well in the past like 6 months, and him being more open and willing to like prioritize the family as well. We are very fortunate that like he is working full time and his salary can cover most of our bills, so that I have it is a luxury and a privilege to be able to, do this exploration. But he has been much more. We just had spring break like 2 weeks ago, and like he like volunteered to take a full day off to spend with our son so that I could do networking events. And it's like, not saying that it was a struggle in the past, but I just think that, like, I am mirroring or hopefully becoming a mirror of, like, how we can do both and do both well, and it's, like, having an impact just, like, beyond me, and I think that that's also something, like, super, super
Yeah,
powerful.
there is such a ripple effect. And, I find it interesting because I think there's kind of two worlds of entrepreneurship right now. Like, obviously, we're seeing mass exodus from, full time jobs, and we're seeing people try this out.
Yep.
And I think it's beautiful because for me, the greatest thing it ever gave me was the chance to be the mom I never thought I was going to be. I never truly loved
Mhm.
motherhood. So trying to balance it with also growing a career always felt like it was pulling me. I would tell people I literally felt like I was two separate women, two completely different people. And certain hours of the day I was this person, and certain hours of the day I was this person, and I didn't know how to marry them. And I'm with you. Like I've been able to figure that out and build that structure for our family now that like that's just how we operate. And it can
Mhm.
also be so easy to get caught up in this entrepreneur trap of either people who don't have kids or who have not been intentional and they're just running as fast as they possibly can. They're growing at all costs. And I was just having a conversation before you and I started recording, and I was telling one of my clients then, I said, if you were growing a brick and mortar store or like a physical business, you would never beat yourself up that only 70 people came in that day. But somehow on this online journey, it's like if it's not in the 10,000s, you're failing. You're not doing great. And it's like, but when you take a step back and look at the life you want, most of us, at least those of you who are listening to this and who I interact with, we don't actually care about growing a business that's, changing the whole world and, affecting millions of
Yeah.
people. Like you said, we want stable income. We want to be with our kids. We want to show our kids what it's like to chase their dreams and give something a shot and fail at things, but life keeps going. But also, yeah, like this community aspect is
Mhm.
so important. And so I love that you're finding that both in person and online as you're doing this.
Yeah, I am, and I think too what has also been, like, incredibly, like, beneficial is the ability to be super transparent and authentic about, like, the real reasons why I'm doing this. Yeah, it started out as I needed to get out of my agency job because it just wasn't serving my mental health anymore, and I wasn't doing work that I, like, enjoyed. Transparently, I asked my therapist, I'm like, "I think I have ADD," because it's like, I just, like, cannot pay attention to any of the work I'm doing, and I'm like, I think that's more a sign that it's work you don't want to be doing as opposed to you having ADD. And I was like, "Oh, you're right, man." And like, I'm like, "Oh, that makes sense." Yes, it was about leaving a work environment that wasn't good for me mentally, but it is also about, yeah, I do want to be more of an intentional present mother. I don't think that like showing, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she tells me right now she doesn't want to have kids, to which I say, cool. That's like completely fine if that's what you she said because it would hurt. And like, let's be honest, she's not wrong. I always thought like I had to show her that being a working mom meant being a CEO and a mom. But then you realize that like if you're the CEO, you're probably not spending too much time on the mom piece. It was a very long journey for us to even have children with like we had infertility, we had pregnancy loss. And so I'm like, this is a very wanted family and very wanted children. And so it's like, why can't I be proud of that? And I am. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I think that's the hardest job in the world to be a stay-at-home mom. And I think it's very undervalued in our society because it I think it just is like full stop. It like doesn't need to be justified. And I think I always had this like negative stigma about like staying home, but then you realize that it is very important work and it's unpaid, but it's incredibly fulfilling. And I think like I'm proud of the fact that I'm taking a pause in my and growing my career because it's like I very, very much have always wanted to be a mom. So I should be proud of that fact. And I should be proud of the fact that like I can be a mom and do work and not that I have to like choose between which one. And yeah, I'm not going to have Delta status anymore because I'm not flying to New York for all of my client meetings like I have been over the past decade. And, I'm going to exhaust all of my Hilton points at some point in time because I'm not traveling. And you know what? Like, that's okay. Like, my kids will remember that I am here and that I am not stressed out and I'm not snippy with them because that's where I was last summer. I was like, transparently, I don't know if I can curse on this
You know me.
podcast, but I was a bitch. I was a huge I know, but I'm just saying, like, I was, like, such a bitch to my kids and my husband, and I'm like, "This is super shitty for them." I don't want them to be like, "Yeah, my mom was a bitch when I was a kid." Like, I want them to be like, "You know what? My mom was at school running the book fair," or, "My mom was there to take me to speech therapy," or whatever. I am, like, rewriting my mom story in addition to my entrepreneur story, and that's very powerful, and I'm, like, getting a little teary as I'm talking about it because I don't think I ever thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like I think of it mostly as the building the business, but the impacts of the life, I think I
Oh,
undersell a little bit.
I love this. I think this is going to be the moment we pull out to really talk about is like rewriting our mom story while we're rewriting our business story because we get to, and that is truly, that's the most powerful part. There's all the strategies, there's all the frameworks, there's all the coaching, there's all the services, there's all the help in the world for the business side. But so often we don't get the help to realize what it actually means for our life and our families. And I hope just anyone who listens to this realizes like that's what I'm trying to do here is allow people to have that safe space to rewrite that story too, because it's important and no one's going to do it for you. And I think that's a massive realization. No client, no company, nobody is going to prioritize that the way that you are, but you have to make that choice. And sometimes you need help in your corner to make that choice because it's not natural to us. I'm so glad we got to do this, Katie. I love seeing you and checking in with you and DMing with you as we're going through this rewriting of our stories together. How our audience help support you and Metric Impact as you go into the rest of 2025?
Yeah, I mean, my goals for this year are obviously to, win more clients. If marketing therapist, marketing mentor sounds like it's connecting with people, they can learn more about my company, Metric Impact, metric-impact.com. And also, it's like, I also just like talking and meeting people. So it's like slide into my DMs on LinkedIn if you're a working parent who like also wants to connect and come to one of my workshops. I might drop an F-bomb and it'll be funny because we'll also be talking about like TikTok trends. So that's just
Yeah,
who I
I'm
am as
coming
a
to the one
human.
next week, so Katie can give me permission to not have to be all the places because that's my kryptonite.
That's what I've been telling everybody. And then I have to take my own advice. I'm terrible at taking my own advice because I'm over here being like, let me boost this LinkedIn post to get more people to my workshop. But then I realized I'm like, you know what? 10 people coming to my workshop, my very first workshop, it's pretty good. And like, not all of them are people I know. A lot of like half of it is people I know, but half of it is new people.
I love
So
that.
that's a win.
Okay, well, we'll make sure all of your links are in the show notes so everyone can connect with you there too. And I'm so glad we got to do this, and I'll see you on Wednesday. I always still struggled with managing my freaking to-do list. I have carried every planner. I've tried every AI tool. I've tried every calendaring tool, time blocking productivity hack, and I still failed miserably. Until I put everything I learned all of those years together and put it together inside the Productivity Quickie. You can plan your entire week in the next 5 minutes if you go to gabshayes.com/prodquickie and get your free productivity quickie where you can just brain dump and have your plan done for you.